Clay, how are they just figuring out now at CNN what Elon knew a year and a half ago, you knew, I knew? Oh, gosh, worth a discussion.
Not only did we know it, Buck, if you tried to say this on social media, they would try and ban you. I mean, there were ample numbers of stories out there about guys who got shot, murdered, and were recorded as a COVID death. And so that's what's so dishonest about what Jake Tapper and Sanjay Gupta are doing in the discussion that they had that you played. CNN is suddenly seeing the light, so to speak, and they're pretending, oh, look at here. It turns out that every single person who is in a hospital for COVID is not there. They're there, a lot of them, with COVID, as opposed to because of COVID. And what this also opens the door for, Buck, is the question of how many of these 800,000 some odd deaths that are recorded as COVID deaths are actually because of COVID. That is, in other words, if COVID had not existed, those people would still be alive. We don't know, but if we're talking about 50-50 in the hospital, that would suggest there's a decent percentage of COVID deaths that are not attributable to COVID. You had hospice and a severe form of cancer, and you died really of the cancer, but you also had COVID at the time of your death. And, Buck, the bigger picture here is, why is this happening? And I think what's happening is the Democrats have gone way underwater on COVID. They are massively underwater suddenly with Joe Biden. That was the only thing that was keeping Joe Biden's approval rating in decent position. And now, as we start to pivot and look towards the midterm, there are suddenly going to be contextualizations of the data. Yes, we may have had 1.4 million COVID cases yesterday, which was a massive new high, and we may hit 2 million this week before all is said and done, which, by the way, is certainly a lower number than the actual COVID cases because many people don't actually report that they got COVID if they're doing a home test, or if you feel poorly at home, you just stay home. You don't know 100% that you had COVID, whether it was a cold, whether it was the flu. And so what's going on, Buck, is, to your point, I think they are attempting to rewrite history, and they are now going to gaslight all of us and try and convince us, oh, this data has changed, when the reality has been, you and I have been talking about this exact data for years now, and CNN is claiming, oh, we just became aware that this existed.
The conspiracy theorists keep getting proven right about every 6 months. You know, as we rolled out vaccine mandates, as we rolled out a vaccine that doesn't stop the spread, despite them saying it did, even though we knew. People can go back and listen. We had Berenson on in July, remember?
Yes.
And we would have discussions about how the vaccine, based on the UK and Israeli data, just doesn't stop the spread very well at all. Now we know that's true. The conspiracy theorists keep being correct. And you and I have also had people writing to us, doctors, some that we know, others that are just saying, hey, I'm a doctor. Can't necessarily verify, but some of the doctors that write in I know personally.
Yes.
And I know you do too. And they say, this is what's happening in hospitals. But I can't say this publicly because my hospital administrators will fire me. I can't go against the Fauciite narrative because I don't want to not just risk my career, but also then I can't tend to my patients, and there are people who count on me, and I got a family to feed, right? Everyone's got their concerns here. Meanwhile, back in, the reality of what we're dealing with, you have the CEO of Pfizer. I mean, you've got to hear this. 2 vaccine doses. This is from the CEO. If I had written on Twitter the vaccine does not work well a month ago to stop the spread, we have to keep adding that proviso because they'll say it stops death and hospitalization. Okay, but that's not what they told us. The initial push for mandates was about spread. Here's the actual Pfizer CEO saying straight up it doesn't work that well.
We know that the 2 doses of the vaccine offer very limited protection, if any. The 3 doses with a booster, they offer reasonable protection against hospitalization and deaths, and less protection against infection. Now, we are working on a new version of our vaccine, the 1.1, that will cover Omicron as well. And, of course, we are waiting to have the final results. The vaccine will be ready in March.
Oh, great. We're going to have a new vaccine in March, Clay. A new vaccine for Omicron. Why would we think that will be the last one? There's no reason to think that will be the last one.
I mean, this is crazy, Buck. The CEO of Pfizer said that the 2-dose vaccine which the Biden administration is trying to mandate, and which the Supreme Court is now considering whether that mandate is constitutional, the CEO of Pfizer himself said the 2-dose version of the vaccine against Omicron provides very limited protection, if any. The actual CEO. And then he's going to tell us, but we're going to have a new shot in March, which the government will also try and mandate, probably, as long as Joe Biden is president. And they say that's going to work.